This happened about 20 years ago. I used to live in Tepache. No one's ever heard of it, so let me fill you in. It's a brush-choked desert sandwiched between a bunch of oak-dotted mountains. It's beautiful in the old West High Sierra way, but nothing extraordinary about it. Tepache is still pretty rural. Back then, though, it was outright isolated. The outlying areas, especially Bear Valley Springs, Sand Canyon, Stallion Springs, Alpine Forest, were all a nightmare during winter. The roads regularly iced over, buckling the asphalt and standing some of the people who lived in the higher elevations. Kids wandered away and got lost in the snow sometimes, especially in the mountains, although that rarely made the news. I only know because my dad, who was a cop, told me. It wasn't unusual to come across a carcass of a runaway horse or cow mauled by the mountain lions that prowled with near impunity. Electricity was pretty sporadic at times, especially in the winter. It was the boonies, basically. To us kids, especially those who had moved from Bakersville or Palmdale, it was kind of like living in the frontier. Other than the fact that we had a TV, that is. TV was pretty much all we had. Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, PBS, and Cartoon Network were our favorites. But even as a kid, there's only so much Scooby-Doo you can tolerate, right? But it was fine. The cool thing about Tepache is at least the time the surplus of the local channels. If you set the antenna just right and flip carefully through the channels, you come across 8 or 9 indie channels. You had the regular stuff like fire and brimstone preachers, creepy puppet shows, and people illegally air taping recorded Simpson reruns. Every night at 1 a.m., there was one guy who broadcast himself staring into the camera. Another show featured a grown-ass lady in ridiculous gothic Lotta outfit serving tea to stuffed animals. She'd beg them to drink for about 15 minutes, then lose her temper and douse them in all boiling water before ripping their eyes out. There were others, including a broadcast of seemingly endless litters of newborn baby kittens. Someone else randomly showed a minute-long clips of their macaw, who screamed, "I like the bitch, bitch, bitch. Yeah, I bitch." Anyway, like I said, my dad was a cop at the time, and my mom was a dispatcher. This meant they always worked Christmas Eve and Christmas, and the 4 of us kids were left alone at night. As the oldest, I was the babysitter. It was hard. My brothers Jake, Charlie, and Nick all spooked easily. The howling wind, rural setting, and occasionally screaming cougar didn't help anything. The only way to really distract them was with the TV. TV gets boring quick, though, especially for the antsy kids. Stuff like Mystery TV Channel, Prank Call the Cable Company, and All Find the Indie channels. They were the most popular games by far. It was fun because they were skilled components to it. You had to guess when Bitch, Parrot, and Loaded Tea Party would air. For example, finding the channels themselves wasn't exactly easy either, but that's why it was so fun. It was incredibly distracting and got us through the more dark, windy nights that I could count. Anyway, so one Christmas Eve, the very first week kids spent alone, I think, we were tracking down all the indie channels. We weren't having much luck. A deep wet snow was swirling across the landscape, carried by the kind of screaming wind that always kills precipitation. I wasn't really paying attention. I was staring up over at the TV and oil painting my dad had just brought home. It was enormous, a massive landscape with a forest and snow-capped mountains. I loved it. Just as I was about to give up on the channel game, the static TV screen brightened into an illustrated swirl of red and green. "Hey Jake," I said hopefully, "this is new." Sound boomed from the TV, so shockingly loud it took me a long second to identify the music. A swelling orchestra rendition of Jingle Bells. The red and green jerkily descended into a festival card that quickly faded into black and white. Skinny Baby Christmas Special. The first thing I noticed was that it looked old. You know the shows like Lone Ranger and Andy Griffin that had very dated and uncanny valley quality? That's what it reminded me of. The title card suddenly exploded. Each letter broke formation and swung wildly back and forth. They were on wires. I realized it wasn't a title card at all, just an eerie illusion of one. Someone shot up from the bottom of the frame, small and bony, wearing an oversized Santa hat with a twisted face that made all of us gasp. It was a combination of a cartoon witch and one king that was so inbred that he ended up deformed. "Merry Christmas, children," the bony man trilled. His voice was nice and smooth, a clear tenor that sounded almost handsome. "I am your host, Skinny Baby." He placed his fingers above and below one eye and stretched it wide open. "Remember kids, Skinny baby always sees you. Jake nervously laughed. He's so ugly. Skinny baby jerked toward Jake. Then he lurched forward until his head dominated the screen, then kept coming until his eye, round and quivering with a horizontal pupil, filled the screen. Always remember to be polite, babies. Christmas is a time for goodwill and cheer, not insults. Nick whimpered. Jake and Charlie exchanged a frightened glance. Skinny baby's eye filled the screen for one more moment, then pulled back. He smiled. I wish he wouldn't. The image bright, perfect teeth with his twisted face made my stomach churn. Skinny baby settled back and surveyed his surroundings. It was a nice looking house with a kind of decor I can't really describe, except to say that it reminded me of my great aunt's house. Well, he said, waggling his finger at the screen. Your house is nicer, babies, but this one isn't bad, is it? He grinned. A department store catalog smile sent his malformed face. Let's have a peek around. For the next several minutes, Skinny Baby gave us a guided tour of the house. Living room, bathroom, kitchen, dining room. None of it exceptional, and honestly boring. Something creaked upstairs. Skinny Baby froze, eyes going so wide they looked like they were bugging out of his flat face. And then he grinned and held a finger to his lips. Skinny Baby tiptoed through the kitchen and up the stairs. Framed photos hung from the walls. It was a little hard to tell through the shadows and poor quality film, but I'm pretty sure they were family photos. Skinny Baby paused at the first door and tapped it. It slid open. He reached in and flicked on the light, revealing a bathroom. I released a breath I hadn't even realized I'd been holding. Skinny Baby danced to the toilet and pointed. The water was trembling, lappy-lighty at the sides of the bowl, as if it had just been flushed. Skinny Baby covered his mouth and jumped up and down, as if in glee, then darted out the back into the hall. He stopped at the next door and tapped it. It slid open silently. Skinny Baby ducked in and turned on the light. It was clearly an adult's room, double bed with a large vanity covered in perfume bottles and makeup. On the opposite side of the room was a coat tree hung with men's coats and crisp hats. Skinny Baby pointed to a tube of lipstick and an open jewelry box. The grown-ups, he whispered, are at a party. They left the children home alone on Christmas Eve of all nights. But no worries, Skinny Baby's here to take care of them. Skinny Baby slid out of the room, turning off the lights as he went, and slid into the next one. He turned on the lights and bewillowed. Merry Christmas, children! Skinny Baby has come. The two children blinked dazedly from the bed. The room was like a daydream, an idolized version of a children's bedroom. Lace curtains and shelves of stuffed animals, illustrated books, and ribbon-embellished furniture. One of the girls began to cry. The other, however, smiled tentatively. Skinny Baby, you're real? Real as rain, girls, and here to whisk you away to the winter wonderlands. What? The girl stammered. He said it wrong, Charlie murmured. On screen, Skinny Baby stiffered. It's supposed to be right as rain. You shut up now, Skinny Baby said. Charlie looked at me, nervously. I shrugged and continued watching. Anyway, I've been going on for too long. So basically, Skinny Baby convinced the girls to run away with him to spend Christmas in the winter woodlands. We have hot chocolate, he said, with marshmallows and singing birds and magic deers and happy hopping bunnies dancing in the snow. He snaked forward and perched on the edge of their bed. He gestured wildly. We have all the presents you can open, piled under the most beautiful Christmas tree you've ever seen. It stretches to the heavens, and I've decorated with real stars. The idea of hot chocolates and presents and dancing bunnies was all enough for the girls. Skinny Baby took each of them by the hand and danced to the window. Together the three of them heved it open. Wind whistled in, carrying flurries of snow. Ready, girls? Ready, Skinny Baby? They chorused. Skinny Baby looked over his shoulder and gave the camera a wide, perfect smile. His eyes crinkled. Merry Christmas, babies. If you're not too good, maybe next year I'll take you to the Winterwood Wonderlands. With that, they clambered onto the windowsill and jumped. I heard 2 thuds and a moan. Then the wind gusted again, icy shriek drowning whatever came next. The screen faded to black, then came back to life slowly, a slow pulsating light that spread, revealing the kind of scene you would only see in dreams, a towering Christmas tree lit with candles and an awe-inspiring assortment of ornaments, embellished here and there with twinkling stars. A deer pranced across the snow and rabbits ran rings around them. As we watched, the deer rose up on hind legs and began to move in slow circles around the tree. The rabbits hopped to and from, kicking up great seals of snow as they joined the deer in their jerky, disjointed dance. Skinny Baby peered around the Christmas tree. He wasn't smiling. In fact, he looked lifeless, like a prop or a puppet. His eyes gleamed dimly, a flat, featureless monochrome gray. The deer began to dance faster, great powerful haunches propelling them into strange broken jumps. Their hooves hit the snow with soft thuds, punctuated by shrill, painful cries. The screen faded slowly to black, then the black disappeared, giving way to a deafening roar of TV snow. "Whoa," Charlie whispered. "That was some weird shit." Naturally, Skinny Baby's Christmas special became a tradition. It aired every Christmas Eve at 11:13. We watched every year, nestled in our own giant selectional in our equally giant living room, a room our mother inexplainably decorated with chicken art. It was great, a semi-surreal accompaniment to the surreal Christmas special. Skinny Baby's special wasn't the same every year. In fact, there were 4 different Christmas specials in a total. They all looked old, like black and white times old, and they all followed the same script. Kids home alone on Christmas Eve, abandoned by their parents for parties or family or work, whisked away by Skinny Baby to the winter wood wonderlands for hot chocolate presents and fairy tale animals. I actually didn't like it. Skinny Baby creeped me out. On top of that, the Christmas special was achingly stupid and no real story. The only interesting thing was the scene at the end with a twisted carvening deer. My brothers loved it though. Jake especially. Charlie adored it for its sheer weirdness. Nick regarded it loving terror. Anyway, we watched it for 6 Christmas Eves straight. Same title card, same orchestral swell of Christmas music, same Skinny Baby with a Santa hat, deformed face, and Model Tear smile. The year after our 6th special, things started to change. I was 16 and resentful as hell. I was the impatient third parent. At 14, Jake was simply a raging asshole. 12-year-old Charlie was okay, but falling more under Jake's influence with every passing day. Nick was still sweet. He was the baby, my baby in a way, but he wasn't perfect. He stole from the kids at school, ran away at recess, picked fights. It was a nightmare. And my parents, of course, blamed it on me for the most of it. If you'd just been a little nicer, my mother sniped, and a little more attentive, we wouldn't be having these problems. They looked up to you, my father kept telling me. They emulate you. Makes me wonder what you all got up to. Needless to say, by the time the 7th Christmas Eve rolled around, my brothers and I were all seething piles of adolescent resentment who hated each other. Well, no. Charlie and Nick were reasonably close. In fact, they'd been playing video games together that entire Christmas Eve, but Jake hid in his room. I myself only emerged to cook grilled cheese sandwiches before returning to my room. Later that night, with a pang of overwhelming melancholy, I realized it would be the first night in almost half my life that my brothers and I hadn't hunkered down together to watch Skinny Baby. It didn't help that I could hear Charlie and Nick from the next door making jokes and emulating ridiculous dialogue. "If you aren't too good," Charlie trilled with an eerie impression of Skinny Baby. "Maybe next year, I'll take you to the Winterwood Wonderlands." I banged on the wall. "Go to sleep!" Nick giggled as Charlie whispered. I rolled my eyes, but I let it go. Let them be dipshits. They were preteen boys after all. What did I expect? After a moment's silence, they exploded into laughter again, giggling, swear words, and that stupid Skinny Baby impression. With a growl, I threw on my coat and went outside for a walk. It was beautiful, snowy and quiet, rolling landscape broken only by snow, crushed pines, and the bare skeletons of elegant oaks and the occasional house. The sky spread overhead, blanketed with a mad swirl of stars. It looked like a fairy tale, like the winter wonderlands. I felt another pang of melancholy. What was I thinking? What was I doing? It was Christmas Eve, the most magical night of the year, filled with goodwill and cheer, right? And I was running away from the most important people in my life. It took a while, an hour in effect, but eventually I swallowed my teenage pride and went home. It was past 11. I felt an unexpected swell of excitement. It wasn't too late. We still had time to catch Skinny Baby's special. I knocked on Nick and Charlie's door. "Guys?" I asked. I cracked open the bedroom door. It was dark and still, with only a box fan to break the silence. I thought about waking them up, but why? They were finally sleeping at a reasonable hour for once. So I crept down the hall and knocked on Jake's door. "Hey." "What?" "It's time for the Skinny Baby's Christmas special," I said. "I don't really want to watch it with everybody," Jake said. I rolled my eyes. "It's just me. The little ones are asleep." This was enough to coax Jake down to the TV. I switched it on and flipped through the channels while Jake adjusted the antenna. We found the right channel, just the orchestra's Christmas music swelled. Jake plopped down beside me, smiling as Skinny Baby's monstrous face filled the screen. "Merry Christmas, babies," Skinny Baby trilled. "I have a surprise for you tonight. A new Christmas special. My first in many years." The camera pulled back, revealing a large living room with a giant selection of 100 pieces of chicken memorabilia and a giant oil painting of snow-capped mountains. My living room. "See this house? It's a wonderful house. Every bit as nice," he guffled, pointing at the camera, "as this house you're in now." Skinny Baby whimpered around and danced around the hall. He stopped at my parents' door. He tapped it. It swung open, revealing the cluttered suit. Empty. Gone at work on Christmas Eve of all nights. He retreated and tiptoed to my bedroom. He tapped it. It swung open. It was almost like deja vu, seeing my familiar room flipped and displayed in old-fashioned black and white. "Nobody home?" Disappointment mirrored his face, quickly replaced with disgust, his lip curl turning his face into something horrific. She knows. She knows better, and she still left them alone on Christmas Eve of all nights. He left my room, slamming the door frustratiously. Then he pranced to Jake's room. "We don't talk about him," Skinny Baby whispered. "He's what those who speak the common parlance call a dick." He tittered, then crept to the last room, Nick and Charlie's room. With a flourish, Skinny Baby threw the door open. Nick and Charlie looked up, startled. They were playing games, as I thought. Super Mario filled their TV screen. "What?" Charlie shrieked. "No way. No fucking way. Language!" Skinny Baby wagged his finger. "Babies, do you know who I am?" Charlie swiped at Skinny Baby's face. "Jake, is that you?" Nick whispered, "You're Skinny Baby." "That's right." Skinny Baby spread his arms. "Skinny Baby, come to whisk you away to the winter wonderlands for hot chocolate, dancing deers, happy hopping rabbits, and more presents than you can count, all tucked under the most magnificent tree in the universe." "No way," Charlie repeated. "This is a dream." Skinny Baby turned around and mugged at the camera. "Yes, a dream come true." "What are you looking at?" Nick asked. Skinny Baby's smile grew even wider. He winked, then turned back to them. "Why am I talking to all the wonderful folks left at home this fine Christmas Eve?" "Dude," Charlie whispered. "Now," Skinny Baby said, "are you ready to accompany me to the winter wonderlands?" Charlie swiped at Skinny Baby's face again. Skinny Baby wasn't fast enough this time. Charlie snagged his skin and pulled. It came away with a kind of wet kind of crackle. Charlie began to scream. Skinny Babies bursted out laughing as Nick dissolved into tears. The screen faded abruptly to darkness. Before I could react, it pulsed back to life, light flickering like a candle, growing until it illuminated to a familiar scene. A towering tree lit with candles, surrounded by a deer and decorated with stars and a dreamy assortment of ornaments. The deer rose painfully onto their hind legs and began their jittery, broken dance. Rabbits hopped towards them and began to circle around their hooves. Through the deer's carpeting legs, I caught glimpses of a body propped against the tree, child-size and terribly familiar, with a stretched snake-like neck. I recognized him immediately, even though I didn't want to. Charlie. The deer's dance grew feverishly fast. The deer began to cry and shriek. As they moved faster and faster, Charlie's body moved. It jerked upwards as if he were an empty sack filled with rats, up and up, side to side, until he was on his feet. His head flopped forward. His eyes gleamed, flat and monochrome like dirty glass. After a while, his jaw began to move, rolling strangely under his skin. Suddenly it stretched, with several sharp cracks and pops. It swung down to the ground. Then everything went black. Finally, the spell broke. Jake and I ran upstairs to Nick and Charlie's room. The window was wide open. Wind and snow blasted through, turning the room into an icebox. Jake switched on the light, illuminating blood-splattered sheets. On the floor was a wet, crumbled mass of gray. I picked it up. It was fleshy and wet. I spread it out and immediately flung it away, screaming, "Skin!" Skinny baby's gray, grinning skin. Jake went to the window and screamed. I ran after him, peering over the seal, and bursted into tears. Nick's small, twisted body lay partially buried in blood-streaked snow. His eyes were missing. The wet, dark holes were already crusted, filled with fresh white powder. The coroner kept Nick's bodies for months. We didn't get to bury him till June. No one ever found Charlie. Jake got heavily into drugs. He died last year, overdose, they said. But I think it was suicide. Sometimes I want to follow, but I can't do that to my parents. I'll tell you the truth, though. Every Christmas Eve, starting at about 11, I turned on my old TV and started flipping through those weird channels. Bitch Parrot lives on, but Lolita Tea Party hasn't aired in over 10 years. Neither has The Man Who Stares Into the Camera for an hour straight. Neither has Skinny Baby's Christmas special.